we'll stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. It's the newest thing to do. Stay 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. The distance between me and you, 6 feet apart, 6 feet apart. And when I say I'll keep you very close to my heart, it's purely metaphorical. These times are quite historical. So step aside, let's live our lives 6 feet apart.
What do you get when you cross Santa with a duck? A Christmas quacker. I didn't write these.
Good evening. Hey, everybody. Welcome to our Christmas Cracker show. And what's a Christmas cracker? Well, it's not something that you eat. I'm going to let my British partner in crime explain exactly what a Christmas cracker is. Claire?
Hi, everybody. This is a Christmas cracker. And so it is a hollow tube. And in the middle is a thing that cracks. That's why it's called a cracker. And then there's inside it is a party crown, a toy or gift of some kind, normally pretty crappy, but sometimes they're better. And then a joke, a silly joke. So let me demonstrate. See? Did you hear that noise? Wasn't that fantastic?
The American version is a little tamer. And so I have a cracker that I'm going to pull. And there is, you don't have to cover your ears for this one. It pretty much just has no pop. There's no pop. We have taken the pop out of poppers, which is what we call them in America.
And so not only are we going to have jokes, we're going to have stories, we're going to have songs, there's even a Christmas rap. And there's even going to be a couple of Christmas poems that Regina and I came up with.
And we will also have a couple of very, very quick breaks to give you the opportunity to donate to 6 Feet Apart. It's kind of like a, KQED or whatever your public radio station is, fundraiser, only it's not going to drag on as long. Absolutely not. And we have lovely thank you gifts for various donation levels. And we'll tell you all about that as the show moves on, because we got to keep the lights going. We got to keep the tech guru happy. We do it for the love of storytelling, but we can't pay the business license with a story. We tried. The city of Novato was not at all amused. So there will be a couple of those breaks, but other than that, it's going to be nonstop excitement, songs, stories, and really bad jokes. So sit back, relax, and enjoy.
I'm Bill.
Hi, I'm Paula.
We've been asked to read these ridiculous jokes, and we've agreed.
We have. Am I starting?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Bill, how did Mary and Joseph know that Jesus was 7 pounds and 6 ounces when he was born?
They had a way in the manger. See, an English person gave us these jokes, and that joke would be funnier in England, where they might say, they might say, oh, we had a way in a manger, didn't we? Isn't it?
I'm so sorry.
But in America, we would just say, they weighed him in the manger. So.
What kind of a ball doesn't bounce? A snowball, of course.
Hello, everybody. Merry Christmastide. So what did Adam say to his wife on December 24th? It's Christmas Eve.
When I was born, my mom couldn't afford a crib, so I slept in a wooden tomato box, and my life basically went downhill from there. Basically, my childhood was miserable, and part of that miserable was there were no celebrations in our house. I was never acknowledged for a good report card. I'd never carved a pumpkin. I had never dyed Easter eggs, and it was just a miserable childhood. So when I got married and had kids, I became the queen of celebrations. I mean, we celebrated when our Saint Bernard got his first little bit of slobber that came out of his mouth. We celebrated. I wrote a book called Every Day a Holiday, where I describe holidays like National Twinkie Day and tell you how to celebrate. I mean, Martha Stewart has nothing on me. So one year in December, a large church was doing this major event, and they called it Walk Through Bethlehem. And 100 volunteers had come, and they designed this long street kind of thing. And there were going to be animals and costume characters and choirs and authentic biblical food. And I thought, well, this is fun. We will just do this. So we drove up at 4:30, and in Seattle, 4:30 in the winter, it's pitch dark. We came to the entrance, and there was a guy in a modified bathrobe. It was Shepherd Shadrach, because he had a little name tag. And he said, well, folks, Bethlehem's mighty crowded tonight, so you're going to be the first people in the overflow parking lot. And just then my daughter, who's 8, she's in the back seat, and she sees that Shepherd Shadrach has this little sheep, and she's going, oh, Mom, can I have a sheep? I really want a sheep for Christmas. Please, I want a sheep. And Shepherd Shadrach is saying to my husband and I, follow this road, and at the big oak tree, you're going to take a left. And then when you get to the barn, take a right, and then you'll be in the overflow parking lot, and Shepherd Nebuchadnezzar will show you where to park. My husband starts driving. It's dark, this windy little road. And we get to the big oak tree, and my husband says, do we go left or right? And I said, well, I don't know. Saundra's talking to me about the sheep. And then, like all couples during the Hollywood holidays, we argue whether we should go left or right. We turn to the right, keep driving. It's dark. We don't know where we're going, but we see some light in the distance. So he keeps driving, and there's a big barn, and he turns, and all of a sudden there's all these lights and all these people, and he kind of keeps driving, and then it hits us at the same time. All three of us yell, we're driving through Bethlehem. He had got the car in the little walkway that was supposed to be the street. There are no other cars around. People are giving us dirty looks. So I yell, back up, just back up. And he says, if I back up, I will hit the camel behind us. And there was an actual camel behind us, along with 2 llamas and a shepherd with a giant pooper scooper. So he's going forward very slowly. And again, there's so many people, and they're kind of bumping the car. And my daughter's in the back seat going, I'm so embarrassed. And we passed Samson's barbershop. We passed the Bethlehem bakery, and we're still driving our little Ford Escort slowly forward. And I say, oh, right there, there's Nebuchadnezzar's Inn. There's a sign that said no room at the inn. I said, turn right, we can get off the sideway. And he starts to turn right, but there's a choir of 6th grade angels singing. So we're still going forward, creeping, barely can move. And suddenly the road in front of us, people are going to the side, and it's like the parting of the Red Sea. So people are moving to the side, but it's not for us. And we look off in the distance, and coming directly towards us are the 3 wise men. And they're coming, they get closer, and everybody's off to the side, sort of honoring these 3 wise men, and they have their gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And for those of you, if you've never had a gift of myrrh, it's basically a chunk of dried tree sap. Anyway, our cars stopped in the middle of the road. The 3 wise men are coming. 2 come on my side, 1 comes on my husband's side. And he rolls the window down, and as the wise man comes by, my husband whispers, how do I get out of here? And the wise man just goes, oh, so he wasn't so wise after all. Wise men leave, and the road gets crowded again, and we've got to get off this street. So we're driving again forward, and I said, at the fruit stand, there's a dried fruit stand, turn left. I think we can get through. And again, my husband says, if I turn left, I will run over baby Jesus in the manger. And sure enough, there was a live baby in the manger breathing our exhaust fumes from our car. So we're going forward again, feeling totally horrible. And a costumed man, volunteer, comes up, and he says to my husband, would you like us to escort you out of Bethlehem? And we say, yes, yes. And so the Queen of Celebration and her family, we simply follow the Roman soldier driving a horse-drawn chariot. We follow him out of Bethlehem, and then we go home and we decorate gingerbread houses. Thank you.
What's the best Hanukkah gift for the person who has everything? A burglar alarm.
What kind of motorcycle does Santa Claus ride? That's right, a Holly Davidson. Clever. Claire.
Did Rudolph ever go to school? I don't know. Did Rudolph ever go to school? No, he didn't. He was elf-taught.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was happy. The Wi-Fi was out. Fingers were frantically hitting refresh, the patience of all put to the test. In lieu of a screen, distractions were needed, and the urging of parents grudgingly heeded. Holiday books, brought out once a year, managed to bring on smiles and good cheer. Hot chocolate and marshmallows slurped with delight. Things were looking up on this low-tech Christmas Eve night. The stockings were hung by the gas fireplace with care. Tradition demanded fruits and nuts end up there. Gluten-free cookies and almond milk were left out. A nod to St. Nick's cholesterol, no doubt. It was hoped a reduction in his red-suited girth would do nothing to diminish the jolly man's mirth. Were there really 8 reindeer pulling the sleigh? Could they make it around the world in one day? Carrots were left out for them just in case. Sustenance was needed to finish the race. As the hot chocolate buzz lessened its hold, children went to bed the first time they were told, for the sooner to sleep, the sooner to wake, the sooner to see the loot they might rake. With children asleep, the real work began, from the parents who each year give Santa a hand. Gifts had been stashed for months here and there without much of a plan. We now wondered where. Eventually, most of the toys would be found, and the ones still missing would be birthday gift bound. Of Christmas morn, this is not our first go. We were seasoned veterans, parents in the know. Excitement and joy would be brought to a halt by packaging sealed up like an impenetrable vault. And the number one rule to lessen the toll? No toys given without volume control. We paused for a moment to take in the sight, the pile of packages, the twinkling lights. But there was one more task to complete the illusion, lest clever little boys draw the wrong conclusion. The cookies were eaten, crumbs left behind, the milk was consumed, and it tasted just fine. A bite out of each carrot to complete the ruse that the jolly old man indeed this way flew. It seemed that our eyes had just started to close when a squeal and a shout were heard from below. 3 little boys in matching pajamas stared in awe at the tree and the presents around it. Cookie plate and glass were carefully inspected. All food gone, as was expected. The crumbs on the plate a welcome sight, for it proved Santa had come in the night. Of the carrots there was nothing left but green tops, proof that the reindeer had a snack at our stop. The biggest day of the year had finally arrived, lists made and days counted since the 1st of July. He came, their shouts of glee, and demands were made, let the presents be free. To each boy, one by one, a gift to unwrap. Each opened up in about 3 seconds flat. Soon cars and trains and Legos and balls were bouncing and racing up and down the hall. A quick break from the chaos for a very small bite, and then back to the toys until it was night. All day the toys held them in thrall, and the Wi-Fi status was not mentioned at all. Happy holiday season, everyone.
I want it on the record that I object to the awfulness of these jokes. What do they sing at a snowman's birthday party? Free's a jolly good fellow.
I had been wondering why Santa doesn't come and visit me anymore. I still write every year to the North Pole. Keeping up with the new way of thinking, I've been sending this as a text message nowadays, but thanks to autocorrect, it's been going to Satan.
You naughty little boys and girls. I have a riddle for you. Who is Santa's favorite singer? Elf is Presley. Now that's a hunka burning coal right there.
You know, festive. I'm trying to be festive, right, for the holidays and get in the spirit of it. And I think I got to string up some lights in the office because nothing says Christmas or holidays or frustration like having a big wad of lights to untangle. That's the holiday tradition.
What's green, covered in tinsel, and goes ribbit, ribbit? mistletoed.
So, when the pandemic started, my boyfriend accidentally moved in with me and my 4 kids and my husband. And we all became a family. My family growing up, though, wasn't so great. My mom did the best she could. She was kind and she was giving. My dad, not so much. He was verbally abusive. He was physically abusive. I remember walking into first grade one day with a tear-stained face and my teacher walking up to me and saying, Saundra, if you do really, really well in school, you can go to college and you can get out of here. She probably should have referred me to therapy, but it was the 90s. But Christmas was always a safe holiday. Long after I had given up the magic of Santa Claus, I always maintained the magic of Christmas Eve pajamas. I always allowed myself to forget that on Christmas Eve, we would open up matching pajamas. I would sit there with anticipation as I opened up the wrapping paper and I would see the candy canes or the snowflakes or the gingerbread men. And my mother and my father and my little sister, we would don our gay apparel. And for that one night, we would be a normal family. And so when I got married and I had kids, we continued the tradition. Though my children can always remember what we open up on Christmas Eve. And my husband and I, we decided that we were going to parent mindfully and we weren't going to use violence with our words or with our bodies. Though we have children who are firecrackers, one of my kids, in order to get out of attending a fundraiser at 3 years old, screamed that she loved Donald Trump to try to get me to take her out of the fundraiser. So my kids are constantly challenging me in my gentle parenting strategies. But a year before the pandemic, my husband and I decided that we would divorce. But we also decided to do this in a way that was mindful and gentle. And so we decided that we were going to do this by living together and in separate parts of our houses. And so he moved to the basement, I moved upstairs. He got a girlfriend, I got a boyfriend, and it was great. And so the weekend before COVID started, my boyfriend was over and the people he lived with got a fever. And I turned to my husband, Tom, and I said, there's this thing called COVID. Do you think that Jeff can stay here for a week? And he said, sure, that makes sense. And then during that week, the world shut down. And we realized that if Jeff went home, he wouldn't be able to come back for a whole 2 weeks. Because after all, we were going to be in quarantine for 14 days. And that was a long time for me not to see my partner. And so we all decided that it made sense. And during the quarantine time period, Jeff was able to help us to parent in the kindness that we wanted to parent. Because if he hadn't been there, Tom would have been functionally acting as a single parent because I was thrown into 12 to 14-hour workdays trying to save a business. I was laying people off. I was pivoting my company. I was crying. I was having panic attacks. My kids were doing virtual school. They were throwing things. They were crying. They were tantruming. And he was the soft presence who remained calm despite the fact that my 8-year-old tried to kick him out every day. At one point, she threw this huge fit and was filled with so much anger that he just wrestled with her while she talked out her feelings while they wrestled and eventually cuddled. And so then we said, okay, well, quarantine's not ending. Maybe he should just stay until the kids go back to school. And then the kids didn't go back to school, and all of a sudden it was December. And I had to decide if Jeff was going to get the holiday pajamas. And I was stuck in a crisis because filled with anxiety. Were my children going to feel like I was trying to replace their father? Was I escalating my relationship too quickly by giving him matching unicorns or a reindeer? Was he going to feel like I had brought him too far into fatherhood too quickly? And so I decided to embrace the magic of Christmas Eve and forget whether or not pajamas would appear. And on Christmas Eve, as I excitedly opened up the plaid, I opened it up and saw it for myself. I watched my children open it up with joy themselves and my husband. And of course, I saw Jeff open it up as well, because he had earned that flannel. When you ask most people what they did as the wildest thing during COVID, people say that they drank wine for breakfast. And I can say, well, my boyfriend moved in with me and my children and my husband without any planning. And we became a family. And we have the matching pajamas to prove it.
I don't know which is worse, the joke or the punchline.
What?
Who hides in the bakery at Christmas?
I don't know. Who hides in the bakery of Christmas?
A mince pie. a mince spy. It's hilarious.
Hey, Regina here with our very first and very short pledge break. On the screen right now, you'll see some lovely gifts we'd love to send you. If any of those amounts works for you, that's great. But of course, anything that you'd want to give would be greatly appreciated to help keep the art of storytelling alive here at 6 Feet Apart. And as Claire would say, here's how you can throw a few coppers in the pot. We have PayPal, Venmo, or just go to sfapshows.com for all the details, or if you have a checkbook, because we know some of you do. Thanks, and back to the show.
What says O, O, O? Santa walking backwards. You have to think about it a minute.
What do you call an old snowman? A puddle.
Well, you've seen it. This is the poinsettia. Every Christmas we pull them out. It's a plant that's generally green, but around November, December, all the leaves turn red. Now, you may wonder why this is part of our Christmas celebration. Here is a legend from Mexico of the poinsettia plant and our Christmas celebration. Now, in Mexico, they don't open presents on Christmas Eve. No, they don't. They go to the church and celebrate and sing, go home and sleep, and then in the morning they open their presents. This story begins the evening of Christmas when Grandmama was walking towards the church with her grandson, Pedro. Oh, Pedro! Pedro, hurry up! We won't have a place to sit in the church! Pedro, please hurry up. I'm an old woman. I want to sit down. Hurry, Pedro. Hurry up. Pedro was walking very slow. In fact, when Grandma turned around, he was just standing in the roadway with his head down. She came back. She said, Pedro, what are you doing? Why are you walking so slow? Talk to me. Are you walking slow because you have on your brother's shirt and it feels like you have on a tent? No. Oh, Pedro. Pedro, look at me. Pedro, are you walking slow because your feet are in your brother's shoes and it feels like they are gunboats on your feet? No. Oh, Pedro, why are you walking so slow? Grandmama? Yes, Pedro? When we get to the church, we'll have to give a present to the baby Jesus, see? Yes, Pedro, everyone gives a birthday present to the baby. Why? Grandmama, I don't have a present for the baby Jesus. Oh, Pedro, look at me. Don't you know that Jesus is the Son of God? He has everything, Pedro. Everything in the world except one thing that you can give him. Give him anything, but what he wants is your love. Your love, Pedro. Give him your love. And me? Ugh. I want you to give me a seat in the church. Now walk quicker, please. Come with me fast. Pedro felt a little better. He walked along till he saw a plant that was growing out of the cobblestones. He picked it up. He said, "You are little like me. I will give you to the baby Jesus with all my heart." Well, one street led to another, led into a bigger street, and suddenly they were in the middle of the big square. Everyone was standing around singing Christmas carols, and the church looked so bright, so shiny, so clear. Finally, they opened the doors, and everyone flooded in and filled all the chairs in the church. Sure enough, there was no place for Grandmama to sit. Oh, Pedro. They had to stand in the back. Now, there was singing. That was nice. And there was a long talk. Pedro didn't understand very much about that. And then the music began, and the people began to move forward. They went for the church, and slowly Pedro began to move, and he could see that in the front of the church, there was Jesus on the cross. And at the foot of it all was the little baby in the straw, in the creche. Well, by the time Pedro got to the front, there had been so many other people, and their presents were all piled up and glittering and gleaming on the left and the right side of the little baby in the straw. He felt a little intimidated, but he remembered what Grandma said, and he came forward. He said, "Happy birthday, Jesus. I love you. And I brought you this little plant. I'll put it right here by the legs of your creche, and no one else will know it's there except you and me. Maybe happy birthday. Bye-bye." Then things got confusing. People started following, saying, "Miracolo, miracolo." He hid in the curves of her dress. And then finally she said, "Pedro, look, miracolo, a miracle is happening." And he turned around and he saw that the little plant he had put between the legs of the creche had grown into a giant plant and picked up Jesus in the middle of the church. And as everyone was watching, the leaves of the plant burst red. Oh, it was a miracle. And people talked about it, and the story was passed tongue to ear, until finally it reached the ears of a storyteller in Wahiwa. And he told it in that night's service, until finally that storyteller is able to tell the story to you. So now you know the reason why the poinsettia is part of our Christmas celebration year in and year out, because of a miracle, because of a story, and because of the love of a young boy in his heart. Amen.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah. Amen.
Hey, Paula.
Yes?
Why is it getting harder and harder to buy advent calendars?
Gosh, Bill, I don't know. Why?
Because their days are numbered!
Numbered! I get it!
Why did the Christmas tree go to the barber?
To get spruced up.
Why do trees make such bad sewers? Because they don't have hands. No, okay. Because they're always dropping their needles.
My friend and I arrived at the Christmas party just in time for the Yankee swap to begin. I was not participating because I do not enjoy a Yankee swap. They turn people into very greedy, underhanded, and they seem to revel in a cruelty that I don't enjoy. For those of you who've not engaged in one, all the presents start out in a pile, all wrapped in a pile, and the participants get to choose if they want to open a new present or if they want to steal a present that's already been opened. A present can be stolen a maximum of 3 times before it ends up with its eventual owner. And no matter how lighthearted or good intentioned they start out, At some point, everybody winds up feeling as though they've been the victim of an injustice and walks away with crushed feelings, because the most coveted presents always get stolen from you. So this party was for the cast and crew of our Rocky Horror Picture Show Shadow Cast. We'd been together every Friday and Saturday night for years. We were like family, and this party was taking place at the apartment of one of the cast members. And after the show came down at 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday. And it was supposed to be fun. The whole point was the participants were told to bring the most useless, pointless, cheapest gift they could find. It was supposed to be funny, and nobody's feelings were going to get hurt. Nobody could possibly get mad at getting a canister of tennis balls stolen, or a swiped IHOP mug swiped from them. But one of the new cast members did not understand the instructions and bought a real gift. A Dunkin' Donuts holiday pack of coffee. It came with 3 flavored coffees and a travel mug. And in this Boston-based group of people, that quickly became the most coveted gift, and everybody's eyes turned green. Almost instantaneously, it was stolen 3 times. And then everybody who did not win it walked away grumbling. But once the swap was over, everybody went back to the party. There was music, there was drinking, there was dancing. It was a party. When my friends and I left, around the time that the sun came up, as we walked out the door, we realized that the gift pack of coffee was leaning up against the wall right next to the door. And my friend Erin picked up the gift packet the first time that night that she'd had a chance to actually look at it. And she said, this is really nice. My friend Michelle laughed and said, take it. She gestured to the room full of drunken revelers, and she said, they'll never even remember it was here. This is hilarious. Take it. And we egged her on. We said, yeah, take it. Nobody will remember it was here. And so she took it, and we got down to the car, and they split up the coffees, Erin, Ellen, and Michelle, each taking one of the flavored coffees. Now, this was 1993, long before social media or cell phones or texting or anything. If you wanted to get in touch with somebody, you had to call their house phone when they were home. And they were rarely calls on a Sunday after a party when everybody was sleeping it off. So we thought we were in the clear. By the time everybody wakes up from their haze, it'll be long, long past their memory. But by Sunday afternoon, the phone call started. People had heard from people who said that they tore apart the apartment looking for the coffee, and they wanted to know, had somebody taken it by accident? But nobody piped up saying that they had actually accidentally taken it. And my friends and I called each other and said, what should we do? Should we say, oops, we accidentally picked it up? How could we accidentally have picked it up? Plus, we had already split it up and discarded the packaging. So we decided to just stay quiet. And then we thought, as the days wore on, of maybe just saying, we took it for a joke. It was just a joke. But the guy whose apartment it was said if it was revealed who stole it, they would no longer be welcome at his house. So we decided to stay completely quiet. By midweek, phone calls and accusations were flying. Fingers were pointed. Sides were taken up. All of a sudden, it was the Jets and the Sharks. Our names never came up because we weren't even part of the Yankee swap, and nobody even seemed to remember we were there. So we were kind of in the clear. By the time we got to the next show on Friday night and everybody got to the theater, it was like 2 gangs entering a saloon in the Old West for a gunfight. And emissaries from each side met up with each other. And it looked like they were squaring off. And for the first time ever, we thought there was going to be a fight. Very insulting words were thrown back and forth. Thief, liar. Everyone was quiet, biting our lips, waiting to see what was going to happen. And then finally, Ellen flew between them and said, stop, wait, you can't do this. We're family, you're brothers. This is over coffee. It's Christmas. You can't fight over coffee. And she said to the two of them, we're never going to figure out what happened. The only choice we have is we just have to all agree to move past this. You have to shake hands and make up and forget about this. And they seemed to consider this suspiciously for a minute. And then they both agreed and they shook hands and there was peace. But if they got any closer to Ellen, they might have detected the slight hint of hazelnut on her breath. Thank you.
So I got a question for you. What's the best Christmas present in the world? A broken drum. Why? You just can't beat it.
What do donkeys send out near Christmas?
I don't know. What do donkeys send out near Christmas?
Mule-tide greetings.
You don't get it? Yuletide.
Why did the turkey join the band? I don't know. Why did the turkey join the band? Because he had the drumsticks.
Ah, here we are. This is actually my favourite Christmas cracker joke of all time. What's a fish without an eye?
I sat by the fire, exhausted but happy. My tasks were all done. I was feeling quite sappy. It's Christmas Eve night and the lights on the tree twinkled merrily for all to see. Sadly, only one of our kids could come this year. The rest are away, giving others their cheer. As I took my first sip of a well-earned wine, my mobile rang and all was not fine. My daughter was crying and sobbing and sad. She had COVID, she said, and was feeling really bad. She couldn't come over. What a disaster! No presents, no food, and definitely no laughter. With a big breath and a sigh, I agreed to go out and bring her a Christmas as a special takeout. I gathered up presents and drove to the store. At vast expense, purchased food galore. And then on to the city and her neighbourhood, I masked myself up to deliver the goods. I knocked on her door, stood well back. She was crying and sniffing as she lifted her sack of all the gifts we normally open together. She looked so frail, so under the weather. With a heavy heart, I drove all the way back to our quiet house. With children it lacked. Then all Christmas morning, she called and asked questions. How to cook turkey? She wanted suggestions. The tech guru and I ate dinner on our own. The lack of our family around us, we moaned. Until we realised all the peace and quiet, no arguments, no mess, no shouting, no riot. Christmas this year had no daughters or sons, but simply the two of us was still joyful and fun. Thank you.
What do Santa's little helpers learn at school? The alphabet.
Somebody's in on YouTube has some ideas or some helpful hints about holiday lights, because I'm having a little bit of difficulty here, and Fred, my co-producer, is not being any help whatsoever.
Thank you. For Christmas in 1983, my mother, who was always prone to financial folly, gave my dad a car. And it was a brand new Golden Mist Datsun 280ZX, had the optional T-top roof. And as we used to say in the 80s, it had a bitchin' set of aftermarket sheepskin seats. It was the perfect ride to signal my dad's status as a popular new sportscaster in Los Angeles. I was 9, and my younger brother, Matt, was 5. Now, my mom used to crush Christmas. She was prone to gifts like this. And one Monday morning during Christmas break, we were dragged out of the twin beds in the bedroom that my brother and I shared to watch my mom give him the present. And this car was as much of a model of 1980s fashion as parachute pants or leg warmers. My dad was elated. He loved it. And we spent hours poring over it that morning, mostly spent figuring out how to get the T-tops on and off and stowed away and all that. So my brother and I were off from school that day. So as would often happen in days like this, my mom forced my dad and my dad forced us to come to work with him. Now, if my dad had had a normal job, this would have been drudgery. We'd probably be laying around with coloring books in a law office or something. But in my dad's case, his work involved things like interviewing Muhammad Ali at his home or hanging out on the field before the game at Dodger Stadium, fetching baseball players for my dad to interview. In other words, these are experiences that less decadent kids would have given their right arms for, but my brother and I had to be forced to do it. So on this particularly beautiful, sunny, Southern California winter day, my dad was going to the beach to interview a champion surfer. Now, the beach in question was somewhere between 20 minutes and 9.5 hours away, depending on Los Angeles traffic. And as was my dad's custom, we stopped for drinks at 7-Eleven. My dad got a big gulp of Mountain Dew, and I got a cherry Slurpee, which is also what my brother wanted. Now, at this point, my dad belatedly realized that maybe having a 5-year-old in the back of his brand new car with an open container of bright red stain for the rest of the drive wasn't the best idea in the world. So he told my brother no. Now, this was patently unfair. My dad had a drink. I had a drink. I had the exact same drink that my brother would. And there I was in the store, happily just slurping mine down. And so my brother, who's always the schemer, he never threw a tantrum. He never cried. He never cajoled. He knew from watching me do that stuff that didn't work, right? It only backfired. He just got sad. So after a few moments of that, I couldn't take it anymore. I said, listen, Dad, I'll vouch for him. I said, he'll be careful, right? Matt, you'll be careful, right? And he gave me this puppy dog nod, and he gave my dad this puppy dog nod. Now, at this point, my dad was outnumbered. He stared at us for what felt like minutes, and we just looked back at him with our enormous eyes and our pathetic, pleading faces, and we knew we'd won. We just needed to wait it out until it was official. So finally, he relented, and he said, okay, but you need to promise to blah, 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 something, something, something. We were off getting a Slurpee by that time. And frankly, we were careful. I kept a watchful eye from the front seat for the entire length of my 9-year-old attention span, which was about 18 or 19 seconds. And my brother Matt was a paragon of care. He kept the straw in his mouth. He cradled the cup. He took these gentle little slips. Eventually, we got comfortable. I stopped looking back as often as I did. My dad stopped asking about it. My brother, he was doing great. So finally, when the journey was over, my dad parked the car. We opened the doors and we started filing out. We heard this sweet, soft, innocent voice come from the back seat. He said, Dad, do you have a towel? Now, I told that story for probably the 1,000th time at a Christmas dinner 12 years later. And it was an impossibly somber occasion. We were surrounded by friends and family, and we were coming to terms with the fact that my mom had just been diagnosed as terminal from the cancer that she'd been fighting for the preceding 2 years. It would be our last Christmas together that we'd spend together as a family because, she was the glue, right? And so I told the story, and we laughed and we laughed, and we had tears of laughter ever so slightly diluting the ones of sorrow that we'd been accumulating. And we laughed, even as that 1983 280ZX itself probably rusted to nothing in a junkyard somewhere with an enormous cherry red stain defiling the back left seat. But I'll tell you, we'd have given 1,000 of those cars for that one moment. We still would. Thanks for listening.
What do you get when you cross a bell with a skunk. Jingle smells, jingle smells.
Do I still look gorgeous? Yeah, of course I do.
What's a deer without eyes? No idea.
Hey, Regina here with some big news. Did you know that Claire is a new grandma? Well, she's not new. The baby is. And I wrote her a little something to celebrate the occasion. The bonkers Brit is now a nana. Baby Stella, she's your #1 fana. But what will people think when she dyes your hair pink? She's as loony as a bunch of bananas. And if you like that little ditty and are wondering, how could I get something clever like that for myself? Well, here's how you can do it. We have a personalized limerick thank you. The folks here at 6 Feet Apart will write you up a clever ditty for you or for any of your friends for any occasion. We'll get a little bit of information from you, record it, and send it off. It's a great way to send a personal greeting. Thanks so much, and back to the show.
What does Snowman eat for breakfast?
Frosted Flakes!
Hey, Bill.
Yeah.
What did the snowflake say to the fallen leaf?
Oh, you are so last season.
This is a story that takes place in one of the New England colonies back before the U.S. was even a country. And it was in a place that is now Albany, New York. And in this place, there was a baker named Van Amsterdam. It was a Dutch colony, and Van Amsterdam was a baker who was very well known, very respected. He made delicious food, but he was never more popular than when it came close to St. Nicholas Day. Now, for those of you who don't celebrate this, it's on December 6th. And in leading up to St. Nicholas Day, he would make these cookies that everybody loved. They look just like St. Nicholas as the Dutch knew him. He was tall and thin. He had a tall red bishop's cap and a long red bishop's cloak. And he was, this was the perfect place to buy your cookies. So one day, an old woman came in and she was wearing a big black shawl. And she said to him, "I would like a dozen of your St. Nicholas cookies." Now, Van Amsterdam was a very honest baker, and he made sure he gave his customers exactly what they ordered, not any more and not any less. So he counted out exactly 12 cookies and put them in a box. She looked at him. "I asked for a dozen." "Yes, ma'am, I gave you a dozen. That is 12 cookies." "But I say a dozen is 13. "But a dozen is not 13. A dozen is 12. And that is what I gave you. I give my customers exactly what they order." Van Amsterdam, you may be honest, but your heart is cold and your fist is tight. Fall again, mount again, learn how to count again. And with that, she turned and walked out of the bakery, leaving her cookies on the counter. And from that moment on, things went terribly in Van Amsterdam's bakery. He tried to make cakes, and they would either rise so much they would spill out over the pan, or they would collapse as soon as they came out of the oven. His cookies either burned or came out chewy. His pies were either overly sweet or sour. Nothing worked. And he realized, that woman cursed me. This went on for a year. And every day he saw fewer and fewer customers coming through the door until he became more and more poor. A year passed. It was close to St. Nicholas Day again, and so he started to make his cookies, but again, nothing worked. So he just closed his door and went home to bed. That night, he had a dream. In that dream, he was a child again of 8 years old, and he heard the sounds of St. Nicholas in the street. So he ran out into the street, and there he saw him in his tall red bishop's cap and his long red bishop's cloak, with his white steed next to him. And there were saddlebags along the sides of this horse, on each side filled with gifts. St. Nicholas would reach in, pull out gifts, and give them to children. And every time he reached into the bag, it seemed to be magically refilled. There were always more and more gifts that could be brought out. Von Amsterdam went up and asked for a gift, and there he got one of those boxes. He opened it up, and inside was one of his very own St. Nicholas cookies. When he looked back up at St. Nicholas, he was gone. Instead, in that same place was that old woman with that black shawl, now smiling at him. He started awake. But he started to wonder. I've always given my customers exactly what they pay for, no more and no less, but why not more? And so he went right to the bakery, even though it was still dark and he knew it would be hours before the sun rose, and he began to bake. He rolled out the dough and things seemed to go well. He put them into the oven and the cookies came out perfectly. That day, he opened his store and the first customer was that old woman with that black shawl. She looked at him and said, "I'd like a dozen of your St. Nicholas cookies." He counted out 12, plus one more, and put them into the box. He looked at her and said, "From now on, when you come to this bakery, 13 is a dozen." She paid for the cookies and headed on her way. But as she was walking out, his eyes played tricks on him. He swore he saw underneath that black shawl the red of a cape. But then she was gone. As she turned and smiled at him, she said, "Your luck will improve." And it did. That day, word started to spread that for him, a dozen was 13. And so he started to give 13 cookies to every customer. Before long, he was doing better than every other baker in town, and they all started to have to do 13 as well to make a dozen. Before long, it became known as the baker's dozen. And it spread from New York to the other colonies. This tradition lasted over 100 years. And in some places, if you go in and order a dozen donuts, a dozen cookies, if you're in a bakery, sometimes you will still get 13. Thank you.
Why is everyone thirsty at the North Pole?
I don't know. Why is everybody thirsty at the North Pole?
No well.
I don't get it.
What do you get when you cross a snowman with a vampire? I don't know. What do you get when you cross a snowman with a vampire? Frostbite.
Once upon a time, a long time ago, there was a baby born in Bethlehem. He was born in a stable on a donkey's dinner table, and the magic men came to visit him. They brought him gold and frankincense and myrrh, and said the boy was going to be a king. Mary just smiled, let him hold the child, but she didn't say anything because she knew who he was, and she knew what he could do. Chaka-ka. Nearby there were shepherds abiding in the field. They were keeping a watch on their flock. Looked up to the sky, their heads began to reel. When they saw what they saw, they got quite a shock. There was 1,000 angels in the sky. I said 1,000 angels singing Heidi, hi, singing Heidi, 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 hi. I said a Heidi, Heidi, ho. That's your part. Heidi, 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 hi. I said a Heidi, Heidi, ho. Well, look out. The shepherds came down into the town, and they found the little stable still. The drummer boy was there, and so was Santa Claus. With light, the little stable was filled. Well, just then the party started, 'cause didn't you know it was the very first Christmas day? Well, the drummer hit the drum, and the piper hit the pipes, and everyone began to swing and sway. They were jamming the jive for Jesus coming in tight on the chorus. Looked up to the angel, said, "Sing hallelujah for us," and they sang Heidi, 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 hi. I said Heidi, Heidi, ho. One more time. Heidi, 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 hi. I said Heidi, Heidi, ho. Well, look out. They gave each other presents. And Santa got some too. Ever since that day, he tries to give his away. I hope he gives some presents to you, singing Heidi, 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 hi. I said Heidi, Heidi, ho. That's your part. Heidi, 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 ho. I said Heidi, Heidi, ho. Boy.
I don't like the holidays. I mean, I actually hate the holidays. And the reason is that they imply that everybody should be merry and bright, and we're not. We're complicated messes. And so there's that level of hypocrisy that runs through the holidays for me. And when I met my husband, he felt the same way. And how did we spend the holidays? Well, lying down in the dark, maybe listening to a little good music, like seeds in the ground, waiting for it all to be over. And then we had children, and that was pretty tricky because we kind of tried to do it, but our hearts weren't in it, and it didn't work very well. And then the children were finally out of the house. And I said, I'll never have to do this again, until I got the job of my dreams at a library. And guess what they did at holiday time? They gave each other gifts. And the reason I get hung up on gifts is I'm very cheap. And I also don't know what people want or what they need. Do they really need anything? But, I tried to play along. I knew how to make biscotti. So I made biscotti, and I found some cute little tins to put them in. And I kind of handed them out, and people didn't break it too, thank God. But I knew that I was in for the long haul, and I was going to have to give something that fit who I was, cheap. But I love free, perhaps. I love words. Ooh, as Mary Oliver, the poet, says, these are words which are my food. So I found a poem, and I ran it off in multiple copies on a Xerox machine. That's how old this story is. And then I found myself, it's a rectangle of paper, and I was cutting it into an egg shape. I don't know why, until it dawned on me. I know how to sew, and I had all these scraps. And so I make pouches that contained this egg-shaped poem, but, I held it up and it was still a little light. And then I remembered the bounty of the seashore, and I walk on the beach all the time. I pick up polished stones and shells and sea glass. So I dropped one of those in each of the pouches. And then I put them in a basket, like you'd serve maybe biscuits in, and covered it with a cloth, but left the long strings hanging out, kind of like tails. And I plopped the basket down, and I'd say, pull the one that appeals to you. There were all kinds. There were velvet and hemp and satin. And they'd pull out this pouch, and they'd open it up, and they'd read the poem. These are librarians. They like that. And they'd hold the shell or the stone. And then some of them actually hung them on their Christmas tree. So I wasn't that far off. But over the years, and it's been years now, I've made it simpler. I just turned it into a card. And yes, I spend the money on stamps and envelopes because it's something that somebody could put on their fridge, and many people do throughout the year. And so I will tell you what this year's, well, it's not exactly a poem. It was something hanging on somebody's wall, and it was just the words that I needed to hear during these troubled times. Nothing lasts. Nothing is perfect, and nothing is finished.
Hey, Paula.
Yes.
What do they call someone that's scared of Santa?
Smart? Oh, no, Bill, why did you make me say that? That's not true. Do it again.
Okay.
Sorry, Santa. He made me.
I'm Rosie Rudolph, sweetie. I also have a shiny nose. And if you ever saw us together, you would know just why my nose glows. I used to have a plain brown nose till the day he kissed me twice. And then something magic happened to me. Now don't you think my nose is nice? Santa Claus is gonna marry us on this Christmas Day. And all of the other reindeer, my friends, are gonna come and have a great day. And then we'll fly off to our honeymoon to a cottage by the sea. And then we'll settle in a reindeer barn and raise a red-nosed family. Da 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 da.
Happy holidays, as we say here in the States.
Merry Christmas, Claire and Regina.
Happy Christmas and a very happy and healthy New Year.
Para, para.
Let me turn the lights on here. Merry Christmas, everybody.
We have been Bill
and Paula
doing jokes that someone else asked us to do.
Gratefully and joyfully.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. We're really pleased you're here. Thank you to all our storytellers who were game and participated in this show. All the storytellers throughout the year who've come to our shows, who performed on our shows, everybody who's just come to watch our shows. I mean, there's no point us doing it if you don't watch. So thank you all so much. If you can donate, we're really, really appreciative. And if you can't, then just your presence here is enough. Thanks so much, and we hope to see you next year.
And remember, the show will be streaming on YouTube after the watch party. So tell your friends, watch it again if you want. And happy Christmas cracker season to all of you. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
And happy holidays, for the Americans.
And happy Hanukkah.
Happy whatever you celebrate. Good night.
Night.
Christmas is coming, the geese are getting fat. Please put a penny in the old man's hat. If you haven't got a penny, a halfpenny will do. If you haven't got a halfpenny, then God bless you. Hanukkah is coming, the latkes are getting cold. Please put some gelt in an old man's coat. If you haven't got some gelt, a little candle will do. If you haven't got a little candle, then God bless you. Santa Claus is coming, the reindeer are suiting up. Please put some carrots out in an unchipped teacup. If you haven't got some carrots, some M&Ms will do. If you haven't got some M&Ms, then God bless you.